So I'm the Chief Customer Officer at Boeing's Training and Flight Services Division. We're responsible for basically keeping the aircraft flying safely in the air, commercial aircraft. And we do that through training of pilots and mechanics, providing software tools for use in the cockpit, electronic flight bags, efficiency through flight, so on and so forth. And as a Chief Customer Officer, I have the pleasure of leading all of our market-facing organizations, so sales, marketing, business development, strategy, communications, and customer service. So there are two very large challenges I see in the marketplace for our area. One is the fact that commercial aviation is growing, or started to grow after this recent slump, and is growing very aggressively, especially if you look at areas like Asia Pacific, Middle East, Africa, Eastern Europe. People are getting personal wealth where they can now afford to fly, and so to match that, there are a lot of airlines starting up in those regions to afford people that luxury of flying back and forth at a relative cost. What that means is that the infrastructure that is in place is not enough right now to match the needs of that growth. From my area, there are not enough pilots or mechanics in the world to meet that growth. So we need to train up as many people as possible. And there's two challenges there. One, there aren't enough people who are attracted to the commercial aviation realm as they were in the past. Once you joined an airline when you left the military, because as a pilot in the military, that was a natural transition. There are less pilots in the militaries worldwide as more peace and less conflict in the world happens. So that's not there anymore. People used to join the airlines to see the world because it was such an expensive proposition to fly on your own. Well, today it's pretty cheap to fly around in the world. You don't have to join an airline to do that. The third thing is the younger generation today view family, community a lot stronger than my or the generations before me did. And thus, for them, being away from home 14 days a month as a pilot, for example, is not the most attractive proposition as well. And when you match that up with, I'm a graduate, I can go to work for Google or Amazon or Starbucks, suddenly we seem even less appealing. The key strategy is, first of all, branding, right? Not branding so much for my company as Boeing or our competitors Airbus or some of our airlines, American or Cathay Pacific, but branding as an industry. Showing and sharing with the younger generation and the current job seekers that aviation is a global, technologically leading industry where you can have challenges where you'll have them nowhere else. I'll find myself one morning dealing with a challenge in China, the next day a challenge in South Africa, and the third trying to sell products or place products into Eastern Europe. Fantastic global movement of people, of product, of services, trying to overcome challenges. Everything you read in the news impacts us one way or another, so it's a really challenging problem to solve in a really fun environment to be in. So we really have to, as an industry, brand that out, both to people to join our industry as, if you will, suppliers and partners to the end users, the airlines, but then also to join the airlines as a proposition as well. To have the airlines who have traditionally done this all themselves from legacy practices to now say, maybe there's a different business model I can use. Maybe I can, for lack of a better term, outsource or partner with industry players to provide those services with me. So, for example, as Boeing now, we provide services such as recruitment and training of pilots for the airlines, all the way to placement of pilots for the airlines, where we will actually provide pilots to fly for an airline. And the idea is that the challenge here is to actually change the mindset of the airlines and of the partners themselves, that things can be done differently in our industry. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about in the panel, which is kind of strategic agility. How do you look around the world, see what's happening, see what the business and the other environments are going on in them, and then how do you shift your plans right and left and fine-tune them to take advantage quickly of those opportunities. A lot of our companies, our industry, is used to doing a lot of analysis. When you develop a new aircraft, for example, you don't just do it off the cuff and quick. And we're also looking at how do you then look at the periphery, use services, for example, as a lever for being agile and quick to respond to market changes when you can't really be that quick with developing a new aircraft, for example. Some of those services are, I mentioned a few of them before, training. the ability to deliver training of all sorts, be it the natural pilots and mechanics, cabin crew on how to perform their duties, air traffic controllers. English is becoming a big issue, as many people from the places I mentioned, Asia Pacific, India, Middle East, are suddenly going into this realm of international piloting, international flying. The idea of using English as a common language is what's been practiced so far. Not necessarily do all these people have the English required. So we're going into English training, for example, to be able to solve that need. Because one of the things we see, airlines don't want to have to deal with 100 different companies for their various needs. So what we're doing is providing them a one-stop shop, if you will, where they can where they can get all these services. Another thing we're doing is, as fuel prices are going up now, right? And even if they come back down, we don't think they'll ever come back down to where they were a decade ago. And fuel is a very, very large element of an airline's operation. So what we're doing now is providing in-flight, real-time services to a pilot, and of course through him or her to the airline, where they could en route change the way they fly and reduce time and thus fuel use in their flights. So it has various elements to it, but part of it, for example, is your descent, in fact. So after you're cruising and it's time to start lowering your altitude and your speeds to come into landing, you can choose as a pilot out of a range of places where to start your descent. And a lot of those flight plans are done well in advance, where in fact, during the flight, winds have changed, things have changed in your environment, air traffic control, the number of planes you may have expected to be in front of you and thus creating the route for you have changed. And what we're doing is we're providing real time, because we can collect all that data real time, we're providing the optimal solution directly to the pilot in the aircraft, the ability to say, why don't you ask air traffic control to start your descent now, as opposed to later, where you can reduce your use of throttles and thus reduce your use of fuel and burn of fuel, and still arrive at the same time, if not earlier, but at the same place. Hundreds of millions of dollars. If we were to do that system-wide, and right now we're focusing on the U.S., and the reason we're doing that simply for the near term is the amount of data provided by the U.S. Aviation industry, or more accurately, the aviation environment. You can track airplanes to the minute on where they are, how they're doing, what's going on. So right now, the most fuel savings could be done right now in the United States, hundreds of $millions. We're talking minutes of flight. And if you take even 1 minute or 30 seconds off of every single flight, you're talking about a lot of fuel burn. So not only is it an economic proposition, you're also talking about an environmental one, right? Less emissions, less fuel burn. That project is done with development. We are actually launched. We have about 3 airlines flying under that regime, if you will, or this new scheme, and have proven to us that they have indeed saved money. And we're now in the go capture the market, if you will. We're now introducing that to multiple airlines and their ability to adopt that. The nice thing is, even though Boeing developed it, this is a service that we can place on every aircraft. So we're talking to Airbus operators, Bombardier, Embraer, business jet operators. It's really about the technology, not about the platform they're flying. No hardware at all. So one of the things that we required from ourselves when we developed it is we don't want the airlines to have to invest again. Right? Because it's a lot harder proposition to say, now I have to buy yet another piece of hardware, install it in the aircraft. While I'm installing it in the aircraft isn't flying. So we said we have to be able to use the technologies that exist today in the commercial aircraft. So you don't have to install any software or any hardware. It's purely run by Boeing. The software industry has the mantra of software as a service. We provide this efficiency as a service, and we will do all the tracking, we will do all the information gathering, and then provide through existing systems that data to the pilot where they can make that final call. Take an average of a minute per flight in the United States, per every flight every day, and you can look at what, you can find what an airplane burns a minute, and it's easy to figure out that we're talking about a lot of savings.